I don't feel like the point is to be good at everything, although that's nice. But the hyphen, that idea is that the more I know about things, the better I can see patterns and connections between them. And that's where power lies. If you can see that this connects with this, or that these could connect, that's going to make all the difference in the world.
All right, Tom and Kyle, welcome to Meld, guys. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I am feeling that mind meld. Yeah, it's feeling good.
This is great. And this is the first time for anyone listening or watching, first time I've done a 3-way call here on Riverside. So this is a first. You guys are making podcast history with me at least. So I'm really excited to do this. But I really want to first start on this podcast with where you guys have been in the industry and where you guys have been going and where you're going now, because I think it's a really interesting space going from e-commerce to agency life. So I'm really interested to hear you guys' experience. Maybe we can bring these decades of experience you guys have combined and, package this up in a way that's useful for everyone listening.
Decades of experience.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess that's accurate. We're getting older, Kyle.
We really are. You always do a good elevator pitch of this, Tom.
Of our history?
Yeah. You do a fantastic. Starts at the beginning.
It's a really good place to start. All right. Join us on a journey back in time. Well, Kyle and I met in school. Who doesn't? Mm-hmm. We were in fact late to our first ever university class, so winning at the school part, and we actually got to talking during class. So fail number 2 on the school side. Yeah, really became friends that way. Through school, started to work together on just little projects here and there. As you're a student, you try to pick up work in whatever you can, kind of in your field. So for me, that was like business cards and logos for like $6. And Kyle was doing websites. He was, way ahead in the future at that time. So, but yeah, fast forward, we were graduated from design school and had worked together quite a bit throughout the summers in particular. And just sort of, had a really solid friendship. We're working together a lot organically on things that would come up for respective clients in both of our fields. And we kind of had that fateful conversation. I want to say there was a napkin involved and probably somewhere at a diner really late at night. None of that's true, but the conversation happened and we sort of like, you know what, we should just work together for real. So we did, and it's been bliss ever since. And that, as they say, is history. But it didn't start out the way I think anybody thinks that it will. I know I came out. I'll speak for myself here, Kyle. If you're okay with that,
go for it.
Okay, and then you can speak for you. But I thought I would be doing corporate identity and branding like my whole life, and that's all I would have to do. And I would maybe the odd time I'd design a typeface, and I would be a millionaire by 22. And that sounded pretty good, right? And who doesn't think that coming out of school? Stories for later about salary expectations from students.
Oh yeah.
But so that quickly became not reality. But we started kind of taking on everything. We were doing like video editing, corporate identity, we were doing brochures and flyers, we were doing book design and website, like whatever we could get our hands on, we were doing. It was just the two of us for a while, and slowly, as most of the days at that time we were watching movies and then doing some work. But that started to flip and we were doing more work than watching movies. And it's just sort of slowly grown from there over, decades, 10 years.
Yeah, it's been 10 official years, yeah.
Times 2,
Wow.
So 20 years of collective experience.
Kyle, maybe you can kind of chime in here with your experience coming out of school and what your expectations were, as Tom said, managing expectations. So I want to hear sort of what your aspirations were at the time. What were you thinking of doing as you were doing websites and stuff at this time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think coming out of school was a lot of want to do what you love doing and kind of start your own thing. I don't know. Some days you think like Tom said, you'd kind of dream of being a lot further ahead than you were, and kind of underestimate the energy and the effort. I don't think any of us went into it thinking it was going to be an easy road, but I think it's the toll of it week over week sometimes that like I didn't quite expect. When you're just like spending more of your week trying to figure out like how to make payroll than you are trying to like figure out how to solve like a creative problem. Those kind of things were like a totally different world of expectations. I think that was a big thing. I was like just expecting a lot of that business side of stuff to like kind of sort itself out. And since then become really interested in that. And like that's a big part of what we focus on is, applying those design thinking skills to business challenges. But yeah, it's an interesting journey there. And we've zigged and zagged, not the word. We've gone in and out of a bunch of different things. The creative agency has always been at the core. We've kind of like experimented in everything from kind of doing large community events together to like we're going to talk about it no more, doing like a e-com startup. We had like a drone business for a little bit there. Like there's like a bunch of different kind of pursuits that we had, but then at the center was always this creative agency that started as like a generalist shop, and we're kind of been this journey to go more and more into founder-led direct-to-consumer brands where we partner with them and help them bring their magic to the world.
That's awesome. And I think that's a really good point. It's like with the skills, and I've been talking about this on the podcast many times now. When it comes to creative skills, whether it's web design or just graphic design, it's such like a horizontal sort of skill set that not only can you use it with any kind of business, but now more than ever, it's like needed in business, whether it's like digital, especially with digital, right? With websites, with e-commerce sites, with now social media, and then all of the creative that goes into that with the marketing. It's been like literally, it's been needed for businesses. So how have you guys been thinking about that over the years? You're just saying that you're trying all these different pursuits. How have you figured out to be like, hey, I don't really want to maybe go off the path too far and try these things? When have you guys been thinking, oh, I want to come back to the agency. This is the thing. I want to make sure that this is the main business. Keep the main thing the main thing. When have you guys decided to make sure that that was the number one thing?
The short answer to that, Josh, is we decided far too late. This is one of the biggest things that we've learned. I would also say it's probably one of the bigger things that we're still learning. I'm sure it hits people in different ways, but in our experience and with us personally, the will and the drive and the desire for a creative person to try new things, to see opportunities and like run towards them, drop your grocery bags and go across the parking lot for something cool, hot dog stand, like, but like, that's something that we have very deep within us, but it is the absolute antithesis to what's going to make a successful, meaningful, impactful business. And those two tension points are the ones that are truly the fun to kind of work out, that when you want to do everything, but you shouldn't. And success lies in focus, and success for us is coming more consistently. That sounds super, super braggy. It's not. Any success that we've found has come from the ability to sort of put that immediate impulse aside and say, you know what, we probably could do that. Yes, we are interested, but no, we're not going to be able to do that and that and that and that and that if we want to do this better than anybody else. I think that learning, it's taken time. It's taken a long time. But I also think that part of the journey is extremely important, because if we didn't try everything under the sun, we wouldn't really know what it is that we were passionate about and what we were really, really good at.
Yeah, I just think it's a beautiful mess of a combination, like creativity and entrepreneurship. I even like, because I actually Tom and I taught a couple courses at Humber and with a lot of young creatives, and it's kind of this weird, like, you need that curiosity, but to Tom's point, like, you need that discipline to say no. And that's something that's like so kind of like foreign to creatives, I think, because we want to explore all these things. We want to say yes. In creativity, you need like that improv approach, like yes and like good business is more of like a no but. Like it's like saying no to all these things, and it's like you have to have both. Like you need to be both, but it's a weird balancing act.
Yeah, so totally. So for you guys, like, what is that now? Like, I mean, you guys are doing branding identity, and it's what's really good about agency style businesses is you get to explore a lot of things, right? Like I was just on your website recently, and you guys have so many awesome clients. I'm sure you're doing the same sort of things, but you can pursue different types of businesses by working with multiple businesses rather than just having to focus on like one thing, one business. Now you have a core competency that can then be spread out to these other businesses. So I kind of want to hear that, how you guys have decided to work like that in the studio side of things.
I don't know if there's that, definitive moment, the shower moment where you're like, well, it's all clear. We now have the path. I think, it's a conversation Kyle and I have every week of every year we've been working together. But I mean, if you look at it in broad strokes, like flashback even a handful of years ago, we were fully entrenched in working on and within digital marketing. Like we were building out campaigns and strategies for digital marketing. We had SEO baked in there. We were doing design work, video, like it was intended to be that one-stop shop, the multidisciplinary, the words that sound really, really cool because like, oh yeah, we can do it all. Like we could, but to operationalize that, to really be truly effective and profitable and focused, it just doesn't work. So we've spent, I think, the last 3 years like thrashing through stuff that we can do, that we're interested in, and bringing it really in tight. I'd say for us, it really has been maybe the last year and a half where we've had, but maybe the last year, a really tight focus of just saying like, we're going to do design and dev for founder-led direct-to-consumer brands. That's what we're going to go after. That's what we're going to kick ass and take names at. And that's what we're going to predicate every decision is how do we be of value to those founders? And how do we pair skill sets, offerings, operational, efficient, like how do we build a business that serves them? And that's been a really big flip, is from looking at, well, what can we do? And then how do we sell it to people, to who are we trying to help? And then how can we help support that?
That's cool. And what was it about that particular niche that you guys wanted to go all in on?
It all started, I remember going back, maybe I want to say like 5 years ago, Tom, back of a little annual retreat Tom and I took, and we were talking about why do we want to do all this? And it kind of came back to this idea of like, we didn't have the words, but it was like, we want the good guys to win. We want like the good people to be able to bring their vision to life. And we kind of were starting to connect the dots of like these clients that we were working with that, wanted to make a better tomorrow. And sometimes that was like literal, like they were actually, really trying to make the future of commerce better or whatever it might be, or just like create like an experience. They're in hospitality and they really want to create a moment for like people to connect. And so it started there, like really like being connected to founders and these visionaries, as we would call them perhaps, or maybe they wouldn't call themselves. And how can we go around and support them? And then it kind of progressed into, from that entrepreneurial founder bit into like the e-commerce space. And we were like waffling with this about 2 months pre-COVID. And we started to say, we're going to do it. Like part of this is you can't just work with all founders. One of the things we found was like, we were working with like consulting founders, like lawyers and consultants, all the way to like direct to consumer founders. And we're like, they share some of the same kind of like pains and dreams and desires as founders, but they're still like very different worlds. And in order to like really be like really experts and to be able to really serve them, we got to focus in. And so we focus on this in the e-com D2C. And we started like kind of firing some clients, not firing. We offboarded them gently to other places and said, this is not it. And we like made all these moves. And then COVID hit and we were just like, oh shit, what do we do? We just like let go of that marketing account. Like that was like a retainer every month. And like COVID, nothing was happening, right? And we really just decided at that point, we just got to dig in. And as COVID progressed along, we've all seen that was a good bet. I think we saw 10 years of growth in e-com in like 10 months. And so that's kind of where we've doubled down and tripled down now, is in e-com D2C founders.
I think that was well said, Kyle.
You can add to it.
Well, you know what? I'll add one thing. I will. The moral of the story there is like our heart, our gut, our head, like we knew exactly who we wanted to serve, why, but it all just came back to being too afraid to just pull the trigger and make the friggin' decision. We've been circling the same thing for probably a year prior to when we made that call. And yes, those first few months of the pandemic were like, they were scary because nobody was doing anything and everybody was feeling that. But I think that hindsight is 2020. Pandemic was also 2020. But we want to learn from that faster. I think moving forward is just when we feel a call, when that intuition, that gut starts to kick in, just go for it. And fear's always going to try to hold you back from doing something. It probably means it's the better thing to do if it's going to scare you. So
yeah, no kidding. I think you guys made the right bet too. Like, there's no way you could have known what the future would hold. So how do you guys think about that with decision makings now? When you guys are coming to make a decision, like obviously that seemed like it was a big decision that you guys have been thinking about for a while. You finally made it. Has that changed your decision-making process, like as a team, as partners? I want to hear how that has kind of made an impact with you guys.
We're comfortable being uncomfortable. And if we know we can't ever tell what the future holds, then whether you make a decision one way or another, they both have equally the same amount of opportunity to work out or not. What I think we've learned is to make decisions faster with the information we have. It's not to be reckless and just to be like, going with trends and fads and like, whatever's hot flavor of the month.
Shiny object syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big thing for creatives, right?
It is. Yeah. It is. And especially, so if you look at the entrepreneurial side of it, you're always trying to find what's next and what's the big picture and where things are going. But I think we're just getting more comfortable not having all the answers, not having all the information, but making decisions quicker based on what we do have, what we do feel, and where we do see the best opportunities ahead for us.
Yeah, that's totally it. And I think in that, Tom always is a good challenge on like what's the thing in the way of the decision, and often that thing is fear or it's like uncertainty or whatever. And kind of understanding those things, if you can understand what's really behind the barrier to the decision making, I think we look back even pre-COVID, and a lot of companies are talking about this, and you're just like, man, I should have made that decision a year ago, but now I've suddenly got the courage now because like we're in crisis to like make this decision. Like what was really in the way before? And it was like, I didn't want that person to not like me, or I didn't want to like make a decision that like I wasn't sure of. But then in a crisis, it's like, you're not sure of anything. So you're just like, yeah, let's make decisions, like.
Totally.
So what can you leverage from that in leadership? It's like, you've got to keep continuing to make decisions. It's kind of like knowing which ones to really fuss over and which ones not to. Tom, you always ask us like, what's going to matter like 5 minutes from now, and what's going to matter 5 years from now? Because if it's not going to matter in 5 minutes from now, like just make a decision and just go. And trying to build that culture in the team of like, we can get so bogged down in the process of making decisions that like almost the train has passed the point of relevance for that decision sometimes. Then it's like, I didn't need to make the decision because the train passed, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the total opposite of what you want.
I think very similar to the decision-making process is like perfectionism. Have you guys ever had to deal with perfectionism, and how do you guys deal with that now? Because I'm sure every creative does, right? I want to know how you guys have been thinking about that over the last couple of years.
Such a good question.
Yeah, perfectionism.
Can we just put that one back to you, Josh? You answer that one.
Yeah. The other question I'd ask, and we do talk a lot about this with the team, like we want to look for and attract high-performing creatives like that are unreal at what they do. But the kind of the question back is like, take everything away for a minute. Will it ever be perfect for you? The answer is always, I don't know, or no. And no is the real answer. If you're coming at something from a perfectionist place, it isn't for the sake of the end product of the thing. It's for a belief in what you have in the capabilities of yourself. So we kind of extrapolate, we put these self-imposed beliefs or ideals on what we're doing, and we confuse them for the same thing, and they're not. And everything in life has constraints to some way, shape, or form. And you even look at the most well-known, the most documentedly and provably perfect specimens of creative output in the world. And if you talk to the people who were in charge of it, they didn't have enough time, they didn't have enough money, there were 15 other things that they needed to do, and they didn't get it done the way they wanted. So, I mean, I think we just have to look at that at some point you've got to call it done. You've got to be able to know when to point at something and say, it's done. It's never going to be perfect, but when is it done? And that's, I think, where we're really trying to work with the team, with ourselves. It's always going to be a struggle and a journey, but working to define what done is probably more important than trying to figure out when it's going to be perfect, because you're going to be waiting a long time.
Totally. I definitely heard something. It was like, there's no such thing as done, especially with an art piece, right? That could be any kind of creative thing. There's no such thing as done. It's just the time ended. Time was up.
Time's up.
That's cool. Yeah. Did you guys see the like the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes that came out this summer?
No, I didn't, but I recently rewatched Lord of the Rings and it was unreal.
Oh, it's so good, right? There's this one little vignette of them, Peter Jackson and the whole crew, but they just talk about the chaos of filmmaking, and what we perceive as like this masterpiece was just like what they called like duct tape filmmaking, and they would go back through these scenes, and there's this one where there's like one actor and they're like, yeah, so the reason why he's looking down in the scene is actually because his lines are taped to his knee, because we rewrote them before the scene and he didn't have time to really go through them. So that's why he's looking down. It looks like he's in thought, but he's actually reading his lines. Like there's just, all this stuff and this idea of like the train has to keep moving. Like we're shooting this today. We've got to finish the scene, but this, got to rewrite this or whatever. And just like, I don't know, trying to create that appreciation of the chaos while still having constraints. We got to get this thing done, but like, we're going to keep going. We got to keep moving.
Totally. That's awesome. I had no idea. That's so cool. And I think a lot of companies and a lot of, even the tech that we probably use on a day-to-day basis, we don't realize that it's really all just a bunch of duct tape stuff together. Like nothing's really like completely custom. Like I've noticed that recently. It's just a lot of like little pieces of tech or frameworks are just duct taped together, squished together, thrown out the door. So maybe this is a good way to sort of, maybe not the best way, but a good way to kind of move into some of the tools that you guys have been using. I'm not sure how much duct tape you guys use, but I'd love to hear some of the tools that you guys use, both internally, maybe for like communication stuff, and then what you guys focus on when it comes to delivering client work.
Yeah, I think there's like an appreciation for duct taping the things. We've really trying to build like a culture of like unduct taping. So like, do we need that tool? Do we need that thing?
Oh.
Let's make it like really clear, even if it's like not perfect. Let's make it clear. So we've centralized like our home base is Asana for day to day. Asana works as like our go-to for the work around the work, and then our work happens mainly in like Figma, and then in like a bunch of kind of UX tools like user testing and like Google Docs to do the analysis, like the G Suite. And then like coding all happens. I think they're still using Sublime, but I don't really actually remember. But the point is there's coding happening. all going into like Bitbucket and that kind of stuff.
Are you guys not using stuff like Shopify or Squarespace, stuff like that?
No, it's good. Yeah, good question. So that's probably more relevant. I just got really, really granular. Yeah, we build on Shopify predominantly. So like I say like 80% of our builds are on Shopify right now, Shopify or Shopify Plus. And then we built PB+J on Squarespace. We did like over 350 sites on Squarespace and just tons of work. Yeah, it was like this tear, like Squarespace, and some of the craziest Squarespace stuff that like Squarespace would be like, there's like 3 agencies in the world that they'd be like refer people out to. Like, we don't know how to do, but talk to PB+J or talk to. So it was like really cool, but we actually moved away from that when we got into ecom because the ecom capabilities are pretty limited on Squarespace. So Shopify, Squarespace, and we're getting into Webflow.
Nice. How much have you guys used Webflow?
Experimentally.
Experimentally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been my go-to since like 2014, and I don't think I could use anything else. Love it. I'm obsessed. It's one of the best companies, people, their culture is incredible. The product is like second to none. Again, if it weren't for like e-commerce, obviously Shopify's the go-to for that, especially with the App Store ecosystem, which I want to also get into.
It's kind of the go-to.
Yeah. I mean, Webflow just recently added e-commerce functionality.
Yeah, I saw that.
People are saying it's too expensive for what it is. It doesn't really have the App Store functionality. So for e-commerce, it's like, okay, I'm sure you can like create workarounds, but for the actual sites themselves, for the actual animations that you can achieve without code now is unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. We're very excited about what it can allow the team to do. And I think a big area of focus that we always have is like, there's not a whole lot we can't do. What we need to do though is find a way to do it where it's like economically feasible, because not every founder-led business, not every business has, $150,000 starting budget for a custom site, but the results we're able to achieve, the way we can processify how we get there, and then these tools like Webflow and just the control it allows for the team to get that quality and finish of project complete, but also the ability for the client to actually use it at the end of the day. Because that's, I think, been a plague forever in web. It's like you've got this beautiful thing and then kind of hand over the keys. You're like, there you go. And clients are like, how do I, or like, this is awful. And you're like, whatever.
Yep. Or then they're paying outrageous fees for monthly maintenance. Like, costing, a couple $100 just to change some text here and there. The Webflow client editor has been awesome for that. You can really hand over the keys for most things. It's incredible for that.
We're looking forward to what we can do with that platform too.
Yeah. And when it comes to you're talking about the productization almost of your services. And I think that's a big trend right now, especially with agencies, is productizing service. And you kind of touched on it, Tom. It was like, now you guys know what your product is, who you're serving. So have you guys done that? Have you guys productized your service to make it more economical, to have quicker turnarounds, to make a solid process of your business? Or is it different every time? Do you guys have like the same operations when you're signing on a client and working through it, or is it different every time?
The beginning of PB+J, when we started and up until about a year and a half ago, we were obsessed with productizing our services, like making very clear, understandable packages. And it worked very well in some ways. But I think where we've moved to focus is in looking at our approach or our process, the steps we take to achieve the results and the finishes that we have, less like a box and more like an elastic band where, as and if required, we can stretch that out. We can go very deep in a lot of different phases of work, or we can have that snap back if we need to keep things tighter. And it is a lot more about, execution and simplicity. So I know Kyle can speak to how we're able to do that, but that's really where we've been focusing, is more on our process, our approach to work, than the actual packages or product that's sort of being sold in.
Yeah, which I think is like really tied to that drive for expertise. Like about 3 years ago, we kind of really challenged The Business of Expertise by David C. Baker. It's like a really, really good, challenging manifesto on like what kind of game are you in as a creative entrepreneur. And the productization can kind of get away from driving expertise if it's commoditized. And the theory is like, we're not actually really great as creatives, especially, but in this industry, at winning on operational efficiency. There are industries that are really good at that. So commoditizing leans a lot on operational efficiency. And it's not that you shouldn't strive for that. So I think one thing we've taken from it is process is super, super important. But the philosophy is less now about like, how do we make this operationally efficient so we can push like 100 Ford Model 1s off of the assembly line tomorrow, and more about how do we reduce the work around the work so that the work can get done better and quicker and more effectively. And that's I think the important part from process versus when you're really trying to drive expertise, which is like, you definitely need process, but if you commoditize it too much, you're missing the real magic of expertise, which is like digging in and you're solving the problem. I think this is like the big thing too, is like, you're not solving the problem around the problem. You're not solving how to solve the problem. You know what game you're in right now. You're doing brain surgery, but the magic is in the particular surgery that you're doing. And so often as creatives, we actually get lost in like solving the problem to solve the problem. And so if you get a project, right, that you're like, I've never done this before you actually solve the problem, you have to solve the problem to solve the problem. How are we going to do this? And that's exciting and, beautiful on its own, but experts don't do that, right? Like you don't show up to court with like a high profile litigator and they're like, how does court work? What happens next, right? Like, but the magic, the real expertise, the $7 million an hour that you paid them is for the way they construct the arguments, not the fact that they had to figure out where the arguments go in the court proceedings.
And the ability to see things that others don't. So
yeah,
a lot in the whole sort of creative space is the more that you work on similar problems, the more you see, the more pattern matching you can do, and the more you can actually start to answer questions ahead of it even being a question, which is to say, we're not going to go down that path because we actually know it doesn't work. We've tried it before, we've seen it, or vice versa for things that do work. Like, hey, we really need to be having you look at this because these things work. These are the tenets of success when it comes to XYZ. And it's a really liberating feeling as well to be able to do that. You balance certain things. You lose out on some element of that excitement in like, hey, how are we going to do this? To focus more about how are we going to do this better? And I think that one word makes all the difference.
Yeah, totally. And I like that approach for sure. It's definitely reassuring to see, especially when it's something you guys are doing more high profile stuff. I'm sure it's more strategic as well than it is just like, oh, here's a website, it'll work. So what is that process for you guys? Like, how do you guys think about that with the strategy when you bring on a new client? Again, I'm sure it's different for different clients in different industries, but now that it's in the e-commerce, what have you guys found that actually works really well?
It starts in sales. It starts with those first conversations. So that's primarily where I sit day to day. A lot of it is just being a different kind of partner sooner in those conversations. And I think one of the quickest ways to look at it is before you focused on being an expert, or before we focused on being an expert, it would be, hey, I need a website. And you'd go, oh, I'll take your word for it. Now let's figure out how we're going to package this. So how many pages, how many rounds of revisions, how many of all of the things that don't really matter are we going to talk about? And then we'll put a price on it. Whereas now I would start a lot more with, hey, I need a website. You go, okay, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Like, why do you feel you need a website? What's happening that's got you to talk to us here? And then always, you get to start to peel that onion back and really get to the piece or the background of why. And sometimes it does come down to the fact that the tool of the site is needed, or an overhaul is needed, but rarely is it really the thing that's coming to. And a lot of times we talk to people when you really, I'll spend 15 minutes on a phone call and be like, you know what? You don't need us yet. The problem you're talking about sits way over here. You need to be looking at this and this, and you've got to get those in order first before you even think about investing any money into overhauling a website. And it's sort of, that's where we actually get to help, not just do. And then that's where it starts. And then it certainly goes into strategy with the team and throughout the process, which I know Kyle can talk about.
I think it's just all the same stuff, right? It's like really asking why and getting to the thing behind the thing. And then, if the team's starting to work on it, we've ideally done our job as a company, helping them land in the right ballpark, that they should be here in the first place. So that's kind of the assumption we go into it, but then there's still a ton of choices. And I think strategy is all about choices. And so really what it's trying to activate in the team and with clients is like, what are the choices we should make? Like, what's the thinking we need to do? And what is the stuff we need to like talk around in order to like make some choices? What do we need to say no to? And sometimes that's like really practical, like what are some kind of like core features and functionality, but it actually starts before that. It's trying to get them, what's the really important thing that you want to accomplish with this? Like, what's the purpose of this website, or what's the purpose of this rebrand? And then who is this for? And everybody goes, well, it's for everybody. And it's like, no, it's not for everybody, but who's it really for? And so those choices start way up, and kind of before you start deciding on like, should I offer a subscription or not? It's like, if this is for a millennial mother, like, cool, let's decide that, and let's stop making this website for Kyle. Like, this isn't for me. And it's not for you as the founder if you're not a millennial mother. So like, and then what are the pain points that millennial mother is facing? Like, how can we serve her? How can we help her? And kind of like all those choices around things that then finally lead to the choices of features, functionality, look and feel, all this kind of stuff. And then once all that strategy is done, then actually start to build the house that you've like decided on what you're trying to build in the first place.
And I think that approach is almost like I've heard this before from other like consultants, which is like taking the doctor's approach, right? Like they're coming to you in your doctor's office, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying, hey, like my knee hurts. Okay, you're just asking them questions. You're not trying to diagnose anything. You just want to ask the questions first and try to figure it out what's going on first. And then you can lead to a good prognosis. So I think that's a really good way to go about it, especially on the early side of things. Has there been times where you had to turn down people, and like maybe in like the recent times? And I'd like to hear like why and what have you told them to do or suggested that they've done rather than work with you guys directly.
Tom turns down lots of people.
I do turn down.
So now you're on the other side of the table. Instead of like doing the sales and getting the door shoved in your face, the other way around now.
No, I get to say no to you. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you just kind of look at it differently, I think is you're not saying no to people. You're just saying we're not the right ones to help. And I mean, if you again you look at the doctor comparison. a lot of times in this space, in the creative space, and that applies to like architecture and like people come with solutions in mind, and that takes a special kind of approach and care to work with them to almost like reverse engineer how they got there and figure out what they're actually trying to solve. So saying no has become a lot easier because you're not saying goodbye to potential business. They were never yours in the first place. If you can't help them, you've got no business working with them. You have I believe you've got a moral obligation to turn it away if you are not the best fit to solve the problem. If you look at the doctor again, it's malpractice if you try to work on something that's not in an area of specialty, because it can have bad consequences. So the approach is different. Why would I try to work with you on a website now if the problem you have is that you have no idea who you're trying to sell to, and you're wasting all of your money on paid ads because you think you need to be doing Facebook marketing. But until you know why and who you're trying to reach and what it is that you have that's of value or purpose to them, nothing you touch is going to work. So the fact that you have no more budget left for a website isn't actually the problem, and me trying to figure out what scope of work we can do within that limited budget is not actually my job. My job's to let you know you're talking to us out of sequence. You've got to figure some other stuff out. And when you do, all of these pieces are going to click, and your investment of time and money and energy and focus is going to be a whole different story.
Now you guys know like where you fit in the sequence. What is that sequence of events, and how far along that timeline are you guys? Are you guys like near the end where they're like ready to scale? Are you guys somewhere in the middle? What does that sort of lifeline look like from an e-commerce brand? Because I'm sure you guys probably know the entire user journey here, for lack of a better term. It's not user journey, but customer journey from your guys' customers. What does that look like from like inception to like they're ready to scale?
The lifeline is that's the struggle, right? Even when you figure out what you want to do, putting yourself on that lifeline, that timeline is a big one. Where we find our best fit, the true wins, where everybody just is like, yeah. They're a founder-led D2C brand. They've been around for a couple years. I think the sweet spot is usually around 2 or 3 years. They have a track record of success. Like they've grown, they've bootstrapped, and they've done all this stuff that they can to kind of hack this together. And they have a real opportunity or a real vision to scale. So they've got their eyes on that mid-market spot. So, they're probably somewhere between 1 and 5 million. And two things are true. They are looking for very calculated strategic growth and partners that are capable of delivering that. And or they know that what they have was exactly hobbled together the way it needed to be at the time, but it does not reflect their brand properly to their customers, and they want to be better. There's a functional and a functional. That's trademarked. I just made it up.
That's beautiful.
We'll workshop
so
it. But
good.
You have this sort of parallel between the mechanics and the beauty part of the aesthetic part, the customer facing element, and they're looking to scale, to that $10 to $50 million mark. That's like our sweet spot of if you're there, if you're a founder and you're like a direct to consumer brand, and that's the spot where you're playing in, and those are the things you're looking for, hit us up. Chat it.
Link in the description.
Type it in the. Yep.
I would say like it's definitely like, I think we're fine tuning in that, and also trying to understand how do we capture and add value earlier in that journey, right? Like speak of like enduring experiences, enduring brands and stuff, is like knowing where we sit right now is like help kind of like mid-market at like mid-stage point of transformation for D2C brands. But how do we connect and like serve them when they are just starting out? Right now, we can't throw a team of like 10 experts at them and do it profitably, but is there a way to like bring some value to their like year one of existence in a different way that isn't look like how we do it today?
Have you guys thought about what that might look like? Is the podcast that you guys do, Commerce Chefs, headed in that direction, like content wise, you think?
It's like step one, right? Like we kind of see content being a big part of that, and eventually part of that is like bringing it into a community. And so like a small community, like picture like 100 people or picture like 50 people in some sort of like ongoing boot camp or masterminds, that kind of stuff where it's like early stage things where you can more optimally kind of work with at scale versus just like kind of doing one-to-one, like more of a one-to-many approach that eventually leads into that work with us in a broader sense. But I think beyond the growth side is like better serve the mission. Like we really do, like our purpose is to make the future of commerce more joyful, more human-centered. And we believe we can do that through founders who see the future of commerce in the same way and are kind of focused on specific ways of, whether it's sustainability or equality. And we can work with more and more of those founders and put more of them, help them take their next step if we can do that more at one-to-many, one at scale versus just trying to do one site at a time.
A lot of people are doing this either with a course, like you said, a community, or a lot of the times now both. Like that's kind of been the business model. I'm seeing a lot of people having like a video course, like whether that's cohort based, you have a bunch of people coming in at once, or it's just kind of like self-serve and they go through this course. And then there's some sort of community model. A lot of people are using Circle. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, circle.so. Yeah, that's kind of the one that everyone's been using. It's sort of like a public Slack, almost Slack meets Reddit almost. So it has like the different channels, but it's multimedia rather than just a chat. So it's been a big one that people have been using. I can definitely send you guys some
that's cool
resources of some companies using it. So that's a big one. And I could definitely see that. But, as we're just talking about it before, I don't know how much of that will like deter with what you guys are already doing. I'm wondering at what point would you guys actually think about doing something like that? Like, is it when your team is like self-sufficient and then you guys take that on, build that course, build a community? I would love to hear how you guys would actually go about tackling that one.
That's a really good question. I mean, the thinking of it is something that's been going on for a long time between us. The activation of that in a few iterations we've actually played with, because we like to test things where it's like we have an idea, we're not going to sort of push it mass market as it were. So we'll kind of connect and we'll do like 5 or 6 of these things and see what worked and see what didn't. We know there's still a lot of great, meaningful work to be done with kind of our core area of focus with PB+J until that's something that we're not done with, because it's never done. It's never perfect. So until, but when it's in that spot, and yeah, like a lot of days, I think we can have those moments on a Zoom call where we can just smile and be like, it's close. And we're already starting. I mean, just even having started our podcast, I think is a good signal to us that there's more time we can give to other areas of growth and other areas of focus for PB+J. And we'll just probably continue to look at that and piggyback off the things that do go well when they do.
The only thing I'll add to it is like we use OKRs to frame. I don't know if you're familiar with OKRs, but it's objectives and key results, right? And it's really helps us make decisions on those things. And often what I'll say, like at a company level, but also all the way to the team, is like OKRs are about putting some framing on what could we do, but what should we do? So it's like first figure out like where we want to go and how we know we get there by choosing the results that matter to that. And then all those ideas, which like we're so blessed with so many ideas, put them under an objective and then put a timeline on that objective. And we work on quarterly or biannual cadence. And that really helps frame like where all these ideas will come up. And then it's like, it doesn't align to what's important right now, or it doesn't align to what's important next year. And so then it just kind of sits there. And we really use that framework to help us kind of make decisions on like, what is that game that we're in? And to Tom's point, there's a big focus on just continuing to produce a good fiscal this year. And then, keep some growth happening with some of those key actions that live under that, like future minded for the next year.
And I love that mind frame of like, what game are we in? And I want to kind of dig deeper on that and your guys' mindset on that. I bring this up on the podcast a lot. This is kind of how I view things. We're playing games. I don't know if you guys have read or heard of the book Finite and Infinite Games by James Carse, like a philosophy book.
No. Is this where Simon Sinek got his talk from? Did he just steal it from this guy?
Yeah, he stole it from this book, 100%.
Brilliant.
The Infinite Game. Yeah,
okay.
100%. Okay, so that's great. Okay. So even better, I mean, the Simon Sinek's version, The Infinite Game, is exactly going on this industry and what we are kind of talking about. So it kind of makes more sense. But I think in a broader sense, I do believe that like we're in the sort of like, for lack of a better term, like Grand Theft Auto open world game. You can choose all these games. And then obviously those number of games start to get dwindled down. Like as creatives, now you're kind of like set to like a smaller number of games you can play, but it's still quite wide, right? Like, you're not going to probably design a rocket ship, probably. Right. Maybe like some designs for it that might go out for like the SpaceX website.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you're not going to design the ship itself. But I want to kind of get into that. Yeah, you shouldn't. Again, probably shouldn't be working on, yeah, Yeah, there's a lot of things we shouldn't be doing. That's even better to think of, actually. It's like, I could, but I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, what shouldn't we be doing?
Yeah, not couldn't we do it, but what shouldn't we ever do? That's good. And that's a good way to think. Because like I brought up at the beginning, it's like we have this like a really finite amount of options to work with as a creative, especially in the design space. You can work on anything. I'm sure if you guys really wanted to, you could, again, maybe you shouldn't, but you could shift gears and design like the next like Facebook kind of a social network, because you have the skills to do it realistically, but you've chosen your game in the e-commerce space and you've created a game for yourself. So now in Simon Sinek's word, the infinite game, do you guys think, and I definitely see this in both of you guys have more of like an investor mindset than a trader mindset, which I brought up before, which is like, people who are investing, especially nowadays, this past year on like Robinhood and Wealthsimple Trade, they're traders, they're day trading, they're trying to get a quick hit, they're trying to get a return, within a week, a month, a year, rather than the actual investor mindset would be, I'm putting money into a company that I love for the next like 30 years. And it clearly seems like the work that you guys are doing with these brands, like you see them going on to be an enduring brand for like 20, 30 years, however long it is, maybe hopefully longer. So when it comes to an investor mindset within this game, are you guys thinking about that now? Like, would you think of maybe taking more of an investor sort of role with these companies that you bring on and take on equity and stuff like that? I want to hear your investor.
It's so weird that you're talking about this. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We were just talking about this over the last month, really, because we've structured some deals somewhat in this way. And we actually, speaking of OKRs, in our most recent set of OKRs, which go for the next 6 months into July, one of the results is to have a certain, I think it's 20% of our patrons or our clients with some sort of equity or like investment structure in their deals. So I'll let Tom talk about it more, but it's totally something we're working on right now. Yeah. Pull the curtain back.
Yeah, it is funny. Not funny. It's great that you mentioned it. And it's thematically tied as well, I think, to that idea that you've brought up around, what makes these long-term enduring brands, and just having a long-term mindset is part of it. Like it's simple. It's a really tough thing to do though, especially, when times are tough. But one of our like core focuses, our drivers, our metric of whether we accomplished an objective or not is that a decent size of our portfolio has that element of equity or investment. It comes from a belief in a few ways, but outside of like this, the fiscal potential with that, it comes back to our purpose, which is if we're trying to make the future of commerce more joyful and human-centered, there's a lot of different currency at play. Money is not, and I don't mean cryptocurrency like digital versus cash versus, although, we could talk about it, but there's probably people better suited to talk about it that should. But there's other kinds of currency even within our business. There is time, there is energy, there is services, there is money.
Do you think of social currency as well?
They're absolutely social currency. And, we're trying to be more creative with the dials and the currencies that are at play, and they are. So yeah, that's it's a big part of our push. And just to really say as well, if we're going to be working with you, it's because we believe in what you're doing, and we're going to show you that we believe by investing in it. And there's no more powerful way to partner than that. There's no more powerful way to decimate this absolute BS approach to like companies and vendors than to say, you know what, we're not a vendor. And if you're looking at us that way, we're probably not the right fit. But if you're looking for somebody who's a partner, and not in like the way that every proposal or pitch sort of says, like, we're partners, back it up, show people how you actually partner with them. That isn't just a one-way transaction of, well, we'll do this and you give us money and that makes us partners. It doesn't. So we're working towards that, and we're pretty excited about it.
That's cool. I love that mindset of like not being a vendor but being a partner. So what are those kind of things you guys do? I mean, obviously with the equity and those kind of things, is it like more longer term relationships? Like it's not just like you said, building a website, handing over the keys, one and done, very transactional. I'm thinking the opposite of that is like a transformational type of thing. For you guys as the people doing the service, obviously you need to get paid in cash at some point because you need to make payroll, as you guys brought up before. Like you need to pay people. So how do you guys balance that? How do you balance the obviously there's a transactional element to it because you gotta keep going, and then there's that transformational element to it. And how do you make sure that you guys are also getting a good end of that transformation, not just doing it for them for the goodness of your hearts, but obviously you guys need to get something in return.
I mean, like investing, I think it's about like balancing your portfolio, right? And understanding your risks and figuring out what your current needs are. And if you're 35 or you're 85, your portfolio is going to look a lot different, right? Like based on your life needs. And so talk about that kind of thing, like keeping a good chunk of what we do in like the stuff that we know is going to be like well done, highly profitable. And the equity and like these different deals are just like relatively new to us actually like operationalizing them. So we're still kind of figuring some of that out. But the philosophy is that we wouldn't get too far stretched because we need to kind of make sure that quarter to quarter we're still profitable and in a healthy, sustainable business. Outside of equity, I think it's still like turning that philosophy of it's not just a project, right? So a lot of times trying to get that team, like the team to like look upwards, and part of what the game they're in is crush this project, make it amazing, do it on time, do it in budget. But at the same time, like being involved enough to help people pull up and go, the project isn't the relationship. The project is like a part of the relationship. And so trying to make decisions about the relationships with patrons, with clients that are more long-term minded. And so whether or not we're going down an equity deal with that person, it's like, it's trying to look beyond just that project and look to like, well, what does that lifetime look with them over the next 3 years? What does the next 5 years look like if they were to stay, work with us and grow with us and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's awesome. So then kind of flipping the script then, looking into the businesses that come to you guys, or when you guys are out searching for them, I kind of want to hear first, like what that looks like how much of it is you looking for business and how much is them coming to you from referrals, from whatever. And then when that does happen, how do you guys spot like an enduring brand that you want to work with? Like what are the kind of things that I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's gut feeling. We don't really know, but what do you guys look for to look into like an enduring brand?
Yeah, and I think the interesting part, unlike investing, is that we're talking about humans at the fundamental core of this, and we're not treating it like an actuary table. We don't have that kind of data, and we're not trying to put human beings in a box that much. But I think things that really stand out when we're speaking with people where this could be opportunity is scale of their vision. So there's no wrong answer. If you want to create a business that's a job for yourself, that has an impact, here, maybe it's sort of small, or it's even something that you do on the side of something else. Like that's all well and good. I think when we're looking or spotting ones, like it's the scale of vision. What exponential level of change are they looking to make, or how big is this reach that they have in mind? Another is clarity of purpose. So truly, can we understand very clearly their purpose, who they're for, what they're looking to change, and why? That's going to be really important. I think for us, just the level of humility and openness that they have is also going to be a big thing. Because you don't get into being an entrepreneur without taking a few punches and learning how to sort of get back up, and that good ideas come probably a lot of times from outside of yourself. Yeah, just they're looking for a partner too. They're looking for somebody that can infuse as much as what's there, and vice versa. And then of course there's always those practical components of is this something that that the market is primed to want or need? Is it different enough from anybody else that might be doing something similar? And how has the performance been over the last 18 to 24 months that they've been in business? And is it something that is able, with the right ingredients, to really cook it up a notch?
Totally. And I probably should have brought this up at the very beginning, but I really want to know the obsession with food. Not obsession, but like I love it, because the funniest thing is, like, even for me over the last 10 years, I was thinking about that through like content production. It's very much like you're cooking stuff, right? There are ingredients to it. There's like a cooking process to it, the creative process. And you guys have like communicated that so well, even just through the name PB+J. But then like I'm on your website and like you guys are talking about like the ingredients that you use and like serving up delicious digital recipes. So I think it's funny. It's a great brand. And I think that's one of the reasons why you guys have been so successful lately, just because it's so clear, it's endearing, and it's awesome. But I want to know how you guys think about that and how you guys have brought that into the company and scaled that up, because it's hilarious, first of all, but also it makes a lot of sense from another creative.
It's really just a joke that we committed to, and now we can't uncommit to it. That's really what happened. So that's it. Full stop.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And you just went all in.
Yes.
Well, it's good. Even to the fact that now the podcast is called Commerce Chefs,
right?
Yeah.
Now it's like it's like the thing. Yeah. It's PB+J. We didn't start it with the cooking metaphor in mind. It kind of came from like the naming of PB+J was, it originally started as like this like sandwich, made for each other goodness. It's like we want to be simple and straightforward, but we still want to be awesome. And the other part of it was like this cheekiness, and we wanted to be like a damn good sandwich, but also kind of wanted to not take ourselves too seriously. Kind of riff on like a lot of like professional firms and like agencies that were named after like CP&B at the time was big, and like all that kind of stuff, right? So it was like PB+J, and like actually people still to this day are like, who's PB and who's J? And they're like, no, it's like literally the sandwich. And it's like the best part of my day when I get to tell them I'm not PB or J, that it means peanut butter and jam, and yeah, we're going to make some good stuff here. But then I think from that, I think we're like, as people who believe in brand and storytelling, we're like, we got to make this come to life. And it started small. And I think over the years, and Tom's been a really good kind of proponent of advocating for like, how do we tell that story more uniquely, but connected in this way? And the cooking analogy not only is something that we love, a lot of us tend to love food. It works really well and is actually a really, really nice kind of like tangible metaphor for something that is like very much intangible. So it really works out nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But mostly because of the joke.
But mostly because it's a joke that we committed to and we can't uncommit to it now.
Well, it's good. You guys get to just keep like, ringing out that joke, and you just get more joy from it every time. So it's good.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It would suck if you didn't actually find it funny and you're like, God damn it. You had to explain that, but it's great that you enjoy actually explaining that, because that's the best part.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
There certainly was an element of acknowledging like, hey, this has got legs to it. It's going to give us a lot of latitude down the road, outside of the joke and the cheekiness. But food is common to all people. It's something that connects us. It's something we enjoy. Even if it is just protein powder raw. Food is something. It's sustenance, but it's relatable and it's familiar. And certainly, there's a lot of wordplay potential, which is important to us. If we can't pun it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope all of your like contracts just start with like, let's get cooking. Like, I really hope that's...
Yeah. there are things that our legal and HR have to say that is funny, but it's not going to be useful if this is a legal document that we need to use at some point.
You can't use that. Like, what?
What do you mean that won't hold up in court? I'm sure that will.
That's funny. And so like for you guys, like obviously you have this lightheartedness to you. Like, does it become like challenging when you have clients that don't kind of jive with that? Or is that, Tom, where it comes back to like, we will not work with you because we don't feel like you have the same kind of energy, the same kind of vibes that we have?
Yeah, Kyle could share a bunch of stories, and I could too. Like, I think that's for like an after credits moment. But here's the thing: is you can either choose to be yourself and be comfortable and project to the people that you want to try to reach, or you can try to be something for everybody and not really be sure of who you are. And I think one thing we definitely know we want individually with people at a personal level on the team, but also as a brand and a company, is there's no point in us trying to pretend that we're something that we're not. So we might as well just lean into who we are, and we will equally attract the people that we're worth talking to, or we're going to repel the people who will not be a good fit. And that might be a strong word, but it's the truth. If you can't get on board and get down with our site, like, good Lord, are you in for a ride? Talking to me on the phone or working with the team or anything else that we put out. So just, stay where you are, and we'll all be, happier for it. But just be you. Like, who's got time to try to be something else? And for all the kids listening out there, goes for you too.
Especially
SPU.
just avoid, years and years of trying to be something you're not. And I mean, is that something you guys had to deal with like over the years? Like it seems like before you guys were almost like freelancers together. Then you started King X Portland. Then you guys did this, or was there an overlap? Like, what was that journey like?
Yeah, it's a good question. The journey was at the center has always been PB+J. It had a couple names going through there, but PB+J, we'll just call it that. And King of Portland came out of some of those lunchtime discussions of, hey, let's try something. And so King of Portland was actually like this. We kind of look back at it as like here we go with the food analogy, our original test kitchen. So we had thought of this idea and we're like, it'd be interesting and we get to learn lots about kind of a totally new business. And so then we kind of conceived and launched this sock subscription. But because we're like, I don't know, creatives with just, a little bit of a little crazy sauce, we're like, no, we're not going to just like buy socks. We're going to design the socks. And so we're going to need a manufacturer and we're going to need to like get thread count and all this kind of stuff. And this whole and then it was like, we got to make a customer experience. And then we got someone on the team and we like hand packed all these socks and like made them special and like put story cards and this whole like thing of how do you make this special, and kind of learned all the ins and outs of like e-commerce operations and like marketing a D2C brand and all this kind of stuff that went in and out of what came from like, let's make some interesting socks and make a subscription business because that seems like something interesting. So that was kind of this foray for a couple of years, and it lived as almost this like adjacent business to PB+J where some of the team would work on it. We'd work on weekends and evenings packing socks and all that kind of stuff, and had some great team that eventually took that over. And then we sold it. And it was not something that we didn't want to pursue further. And there was another sock company that was looking for that brand in their portfolio and those subscribers. So they bought it from us. And we went back to full-time PB+J, and I think we're cooking up another test kitchen actually as we speak. So there might be some more of those kind of experiments coming up.
That's awesome. Bringing it even further on that analogy with the test kitchen, obviously like ghost kitchens and virtual kitchens are like a big thing right now, right? Have you guys thought about that sort of business model in e-commerce? Have you guys thought about that? I think Shopify is now doing Shopify fulfillment. So these are basically like the ghost kitchens, right? Of like e-commerce. Have you guys thought of how you can systematically and cheaply test products out? I mean, there's obviously the drop shipping model, and there's, like print on demand and stuff like that for clothing instead of having to manufacture all this stuff. But do you guys think of that? How you can like test these products out more or work with clients to test out products easily?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of full circle to earlier in the call, but I mean, yeah, we would love to. We want to do it all. But I think our approach to what Kyle mentioned with OKRs is the way we're going to continue, I think, to be useful and valuable to our patrons, to our clients, and to our team and the business is to still do that somewhat methodically. And there's a big area of interest in customer experience holistically is very much on our radar. Again, if we're truly going to be a help to these founders, what are the things that they're struggling with? What are the things that they need help on? And just because we don't do it now doesn't mean that we can't or wouldn't down the road. So customer experience is a big part of it. Like we've certainly played around in the operations, fulfillment, shipping side of things. I think the honest truth is right now, there are people that specialize in that and do it a whole heck of a lot better than we do. We'd rather work with them to kind of bring that together, be the PB to the J, mush that squishy, glorious center in and give a pretty kick-ass sandwich.
That's perfect. So you guys find other partners that can fulfill the certain things you guys don't have. So yeah, when it comes, you were just saying being a partner to the clients, now you're bringing in other partners as well, because it makes a lot of sense. Like, hey, we just do this one part really, really well. Those guys over there, they do that other part really, really well. We're going to connect you. So again, that's the transformational relationship. Obviously, I'm not saying you should be thinking about, well, how do we capitalize on that? But your best part is just, hey, we know the people that can do it really well for you, and we'll just make sure you get that part done really, really well. Yeah,
we win together with that. Yeah. Like if the mindset and the lens is we're here to help, then that's the best way to help. And I don't know if you guys have tried this ever, but there's the Big Mac challenge where you buy a Big Mac meal and the Coke. You put the fries, the sandwich, and the Coke in a blender, you blend it up, and then you chug it. The science of that is your body can't take it, and it comes back up. But I think to draw the food analogy to it is you can do a lot of work to try to blend stuff together, but the best things happen when the burger is a really good burger and the fries are great fries and your drink is a great drink. And I'm not saying that McDonald's is the best at those. I am saying though, yeah, when you can bring in integrated partners, when your focus is to provide the best whatever meal possible, then you're going to pull those together. And like, that's the power is like, look, if you could pick your perfect burger and fries, like they probably don't come from the same place. And that's where Uber Eats is dangerous, you know? Well, I'm going to get my burger from A&W. I'm going to get my fries from Wendy's. I'm going to get this from here and that from there. And then I have the perfect fast food meal. So that's like us. We want to bring all the best together.
I think you just like brought up a whole other life hack with like ordering specific stuff in different places.
It's expensive.
Like literally, it's expensive, but
if you can do it, do it.
That's the kind of Uber
Life
Eats
hack.
feature. It should be like, it's called like the round trip, and it just, you can select like 4 restaurants and they just do like a big loop and hit them all and come in.
Oh man. Or I think DoorDash, right? They're going to be doing the ghost kitchen. So I think eventually you'll be able to just do that. Like they'll spring them up and like you can get it all from one place. Yeah, DoorDash is doing some ghost kitchens. Yeah.
I mean, the ghost kitchen stuff is like such a crazy topic. Like it's just, it brings up this whole idea of like, what game are you in? Is like, what is that special sauce that you bring? I think that's something that like enduring brands figure out, and they don't fuss around on some of the stuff they don't need to. And they focus just relentlessly on what is that special, the zhuzh that they bring, the pain that they're really solving, and try and not worry about being everything, but just doing that one thing really, really well.
I think that makes total sense. Any good business, any good product, like we're on Riverside right now, they're just nailing this video aspect so well.
Yeah.
The 3 of us are on different locations. It's all, right now in real time. Then when this is done, we're going to have like the highest quality audio and video. Like it's perfect. They're just focusing on one thing. They're not thinking about, oh, how do you edit this video? Like, we'll leave that to someone else. Right. But this kind of like brings me to the antithesis of this almost. And maybe this will just bring everything right back, which is Tom's, your idea of the multi-hyphenate creative entrepreneur. I mean, we've been talking about that. That's been kind of the thread throughout all of this. I've been trying to thread that through this whole conversation. And I want to just make it like very upfront and center for people listening, and just get like absorbed in that notion of what this actually is. So first, Tom, maybe I'd love for you to kind of explain your thinking of that and what that is to you, and then maybe we can find some interesting things from there.
We dabbled all around it like a paint by numbers. But I think the idea that we come from with the multi-hyphenate creative is that we should have different areas of interest. We should have different areas of skill, and we should dabble in this and that, and we should have a broad understanding of the creative field. The things that are, parallel to the work that you do, the things that are next level to the work that you do, the things that come before, and sequencing all of that and how they all connect. And that web is important. Bringing those together isn't always what the point is. And multi-hyphenate, from at least my point of view, is I love music. I am passionate about theater and acting and set design, like fine art and films and like there's so much good creative stuff out there, and there is so much that can, should, and does inform your everyday. And what we need to continue to try to find are the hyphens. Not for the sake of trying to sound like self-important. That's not at all what it is. It is to draw from the strengths of all of these different areas to get better at things and read more and learn more and be open to more, because it makes the thing that you're an expert at even better when you can support it with all the other stuff around it. And that's the lifelong pursuit.
Do you have something like that too, Kyle? Like, do you have like other passions, pursuits that you kind of go after outside of PB+J that you've brought into the company? Because I know, Tom, you're just talking about like theater and the arts and stuff like that. I'm bringing it into what you do. So is there stuff like that for you, Kyle?
You know what? Less and less, but I think like a lot of that recently has been, a lot of focus on business, a lot of focus on family, and especially in the past like year and a half, kind of navigating those 2 really, really big, important pillars amidst all that's changing and going in the world. And so some days I'm like, man, what happened to the music that I used to play, or the songs I used to write, or the poetry I used to write, and the books I used to read, or all that kind of stuff. And I think, to Tom's point, it is really important, and to try and not lose lose sight of that. So there's definitely like creative things that keep me going. But it's been a weird couple of years, to be honest with you, but especially the last year, think just trying to take some of that hyphenating into like whatever life brings you and wherever you're at, and applying, that creativity to whatever that life is. And Tom's got kids, I've got kids, and I have 3-year-old twins. And so a lot of time on the weekend is playing with them. And so how do you bring that creativity and joy into that? I find a lot of inspiration in like poetry, and which maybe seems like a weird connection to business, but that will often give me the headspace or some of the ideas to bring in, like solve some of those people challenges that we're having, people leading, like, friction points. And so bringing that creativity, and sometimes that's writing poetry, sometimes that's reading it, and using that as a space to multi-hyphenate my way to a solution and inversely into the business world.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of sounds like there's sort of like two pillars there. One, like Tom, you brought up, it's almost like we were talking about this being a game. It's like, where you are in the game right now, and you're not trying to go on a different level, but then by hyphenating and going out, you're kind of getting a lay of the land. You're getting a bigger picture of what this game is. You're getting a picture of what the next level is. Where was the level you came from? What are the parallel levels? So, and I think that's really great too, because you can bring things in from other disciplines. That's how you'll come up with something new. Like, I think right now we're almost getting to like the point where like there's nothing really new. Like, we're kind of like hitting that ceiling. The only way to create new things is combining it, right? The PB+J. Now you have, it's making those combinations. So I think it's totally fine to do that. But then it's like figuring out, okay, what are you a professional at? And then what are you a dabbler at? It's totally fine to be a dabbler at things. Like, you might not be a professional juggler or a professional drummer, but you can do that on your free time. And I think what a lot of people do with business is they try to almost like systematize a business so that it's like an income generating thing that like they're good with the money, and then they can just dabble with all these things. And we're seeing that a lot more, right? With people trying to do, again, that maybe that's the trader mindset, or maybe it is the investor mindset of, hey, I'm going to invest a certain part of my life into this business that can either be sold or like run independently of me that brings in money. Then I can do all these things I like doing. And who knows where that goes? Like, if you look at people in history like Leonardo da Vinci, he called himself basically an architect and like an inventor, but then he gets known for the fucking Mona Lisa. He gets known for his paintings, but he didn't ever think of himself as a painter, which is, it blows my mind every time.
That's such a good example.
That like he's a great example of that Renaissance man kind of thing but I don't feel like the point is to be good at everything, although that's nice. But the hyphen, that idea is that the investor mindset would be, the more I know about things, the better I can see patterns and connections between them. And that's where power lies. Like, whether you even just look at it strictly from a business sense, in connections are your network, network is your net worth, whatever things you want to throw on that. But connections are critical. If you can see that this connects with this, or that these could connect, that's going to make all the difference in the world. And so dabbling, although I also believe it's like the essence of life to be able to explore and try different things, try new foods. But to be able to be like, oh, like how that's put together actually has a lot of similarities to how this, and there's, they solved this by doing that. I wonder if we could use what they learned there. And that's what the hyphen, that's what it's about. It takes
the
these
curiosity, right?
Yeah, it connects these two things that are disparate, and they make it one, but still two very distinct things. And the PB+J is perfect hyphenated food.
It truly is. It's like the simplest, like most concise version of that. I love it. So yeah, you guys definitely nailed it with that. And I guess I just want to end it off then with a couple like resources, tools and stuff. So, we're talking about this multi-hyphenate and like going to dabble and explore and stuff. But obviously there's a time where you need to, like, for lack of a better term, but exploit, right? There's the explore and then the exploit, not like in a bad sense, but in the actual term of exploiting this thing. And you guys have found that with PB+J. So for all these people a lot of people listen to the podcast, they're like, they could be students, they're people early on in their careers. What kind of advice would you give to them to start on that path of like becoming a master? Like we said, you can totally go off and like, try things and do whatever you want on the side. But if you want to master one thing, you do sort of need to, like, for lack of a better term, but like niche down and really focus. And obviously it seems like you guys have brought a level of discipline into it too. a lot of creatives are scatterbrained and they just kind of do it, but like you've been methodical about it and bringing that entrepreneurial mindset into creativity. So I'd love to hear maybe some closing thoughts, some resources, some wisdom and inspiration that you guys can bring for some people listening.
We truly believe when there's an intersection of passion and purpose, there's something important that you shouldn't ignore there. How that takes form is, I mean, there's infinite possibilities. But I think if you're going to truly exploit something, and if you're going to take the business world and the art world and try to make those work, then the passion is needed, because the dedication and the resilience and the drive to continue down that path is not for the lighthearted, and you need to have that grit. But at the end of the day, the other component, the other ingredient, the purpose, it's the North Star. It's when you don't want to get up and try again. It's the reason why you do. It's the reason why why you set down that or started down that path in the first place. So that would be probably my biggest, especially if you're younger. Skills you can learn. Software is a tool. They're not the things that will define you, but the purpose that you serve and the passion that you have for that, those are the things to listen to, whatever they are. And you'll find a way with those to make it work.
That's awesome. That's great. Thanks so much, Tom.
I like that. Can I just ditto that?
You've got more.
Resource Good to Great, which is an old school business book by Jim Collins. And the one little nugget that I'd throw out there is they profiled a lot of these CEOs that took these companies from good to great and kind of outperformed the market. And they didn't often look like the kind of archetype of a CEO, of a leader that we often put out there. And one of those things was this relentless stubbornness on the things that matter a lot, and this absolute humility and agility around the things that don't. And so kind of understanding in your life, but also as a leader, what are those really, really important things? And this kind of duality of being incredibly disciplined to the vision of what you're trying to create, while at the same time being incredibly humble that there are a lot of other ways to do it. And there's a lot of great people around you that you can help get you there.
Yeah, you guys, honestly, seriously, this conversation, even just from this last hour and a half, has been incredible. You guys have just brought so many new ideas, and kind of, I really appreciate you guys riffing with me too on some of these ideas. No, but seriously, guys, this was awesome. And just from your wisdom, seriously, and knowledge from being in the industry for so long, and you guys have so much ahead of you too. I mean, it seems like you're really just getting started with PB+J. Honestly, it seems like it takes a long time, right, before you really hit the knee of the curve, and then you just got to stick with it. And you guys are doing amazing. The work that you guys have been putting out is great. But one last question I have for both of you guys. There's a lot going on. You guys have obviously gone through a growth period and stuff. What is something you guys are really excited about coming up with the business, with some of the things you're working on? Maybe something not having to do with the business, but what are you guys excited about coming up?
I'm excited to meet 5 of our employees in person.
Yeah, there you go.
At some point. It's been weird to grow a company and a team of people that there are 5 people on our team right now that I've never met. Kyle and I, well, maybe you've met a couple, but I've never met in person.
Met a few, yeah, but it's weird.
And that's wow. That's weird. So I am really looking forward to a time in the next 12 to 18 months where it will be more than reasonable, responsible, and respectable to meet them. I'm pretty pumped about that, and maybe going to the movies. I don't know. That might be.
Yeah, it's just
I'm excited for the movies to come back.
Just the regular stuff,
Just regular stuff. Yeah.
I'm super excited about that. I'm super giving people hugs. That's I'm really excited about not feeling like a ticking time bomb when I'm giving someone a hug, which is a weird feeling because it's this complete opposite feeling of that's the opposite of what you're trying to do in business though. Because I just want to hug people, Josh. That's really what I want to do.
I just want a hug.
That's where it came down to. Oh, and business, man. I think I'm excited. Tom and I talk a lot about continuing to fire ourselves. And I'm excited about, where the last 6 months we've jumped into new roles and things and that kind of stuff to help grow. And I'm excited to fire myself in 6 months from some of those things as we build, a great team and systems around it to take some of those pieces off of my plate, and so I can focus into other things. So I'm excited to get fired, Josh.
I love that. I'm saying. For all the best reasons ever.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
Well, guys, this was awesome. Like, seriously, this conversation was fantastic. I hope we get to do it again in another capacity in some way.
Yeah, man.
For all of those listening right now, check out the podcast, Commerce Chefs. I'll put a link in the description. And, other than that, where can people find you if they want to connect with you guys, pursue you guys on social media, websites, where can they engage with PB+J?
Tom's got a great TikTok going on. He does TikTok dances every Mondays and Wednesdays. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. MySpace is where it's at still for me. You can find us on LinkedIn at PB+J or Kyle Dutka and Tom Collver. We're easy to find. And our website, of course, commercechefs.com or addpbj.com if you're looking for the agency side. And all the handles there too for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. No TikTok. There's really no TikTok for us.
Not yet. I see there. Do you guys see there being a lot of growth potential there for brands?
Well, I guess it depends how the courts rule on.
Are they still doing that? Is that still a thing? I thought it was like they're safe now. I thought they're good to go.
Yeah, search how much I'm still following in that. Good if
I thought
if
it got approved, but it was like a conditional or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think there's definitely it depends on the brand, but there's like you can't not look to those behemoths, especially if you're like a mass market CPG or something like that. I think for a lot more niche brands, you got to consider where your resources are, like what's going to work for you and what's not. So it can't be everywhere.
That's true, and that's been a thread this whole time. Pick your platform.
Pick your platform. Yep. I like that.
I'm sure. Yeah. Pick your poison. Pick your platform.
Pick your platform.
It's just like a poison bottles with the logos on it, or like drugs.
Platform roulette.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. This is good.
That was awesome. Well, we'll leave you with that, guys. Pick your platform. Hopefully this was on Spotify or something. I don't really care wherever you listen to this. Thank you for listening, though. Tom, Kyle, this is amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and I can't wait to do it again.
Thank you, Josh. It was awesome. Chat soon.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.